You tap a Wi-Fi network, and within seconds, your phone begins a hidden conversation most people never see. Before the internet even opens, before a single web page loads, your device identifies itself, requests an address, searches for DNS servers, negotiates encryption, checks internet access, and silently prepares dozens of background services. All of this happens almost instantly, but today we're slowing everything down. Because the moment you tap that network name, that small familiar gesture, something extraordinary begins. Not one thing, not two, an entire cascade of systems wakes up. Machine speed conversations start firing across the air, and the hidden world of protocols and addresses and encrypted handshakes begins working quietly beneath the surface. Most people never think about it. Why would they? It just works. But if you actually see what was happening, if you could slow down time and watch the invisible, you see something genuinely remarkable. So let's do exactly that. The phone sees the network. Here's something that might surprise you. By the time you actually tap a Wi-Fi network, your phone already knew it was there. Long before your finger moves, your device has been listening, quietly, patiently, scanning the air for signals the way a radio antenna scans for stations. And the router in your home, or the coffee shop, or the airport has been doing something equally constant, announcing itself repeatedly, after fraction of a second, every fraction of a second. These announcements have a name. They are called beacon frames. The router broadcasts them roughly 10 times per second, and each one carries a small package of information. The network's name, what kind of security it uses, what speeds it supports, and various technical details that tell nearby devices what they're dealing with. The network name, the one you recognize, the one you gave years ago, that's called an SSID, Service Set Identifier. It's just a label, really, a human-readable name attached to a radio frequency, like a sign above a door. Your phone is constantly receiving these beacons. Every device around you is broadcasting its presence into the space you're standing in right now. The signal from your neighbor's router is probably passing through the walls as you watch this. Multiple networks overlapping, invisible constant. When you open your Wi-Fi settings and see a list of available networks, you're not discovering them in that moment. Your phone has been maintaining that list, updating it continuously based on the beacons it's already receiving. So when you tap, when you select a network and confirm, everything that follows is the next step, not the first. The first step already happened while you weren't looking. Authentication and encryption. Now the real work begins. Your phone has chosen a network, but it doesn't just connect. It has to prove it belongs there. And the router has to prove it's legitimate. And then they have to agree on how to keep every single conversation private. This is the handshake. Modern Wi-Fi, what you're probably using, runs on something called WPA2, or increasingly WPA3, Wi-Fi Protected Access. The number refers to the generation of the protocol. WPA3 is newer and more secure, though WPA2 is still common and still reasonably strong when you configure it properly. Here's the question. When you type a Wi-Fi password into your phone, what actually happens to it? The answer is not what most people assume. The router doesn't store your password as plain text, sitting in memory, waiting to be matched against what you sent. That would be dangerously insecure. Instead, the process is far more elegant and considerably stranger. When your phone begins connecting, the router sends a challenge, a piece of random data, a sort of puzzle. Your phone takes that challenge, combines it with the password you entered, runs it through a cryptographic function, and sends the result back. The router performs the same calculation on its end, using the password it has stored. If the two results match, without either side ever transmitting the password directly, access is granted. No password was ever sent across the air. After that, they generate a unique encryption key for this specific session, this particular connection. At this particular moment, every packet of data that travels between your device and the router will be encrypted with that key. WPA3 takes this further. It uses a method called simultaneous authentication of equals, which makes it significantly harder to attack even if someone captures the connection data and tries to crack it later. The mathematical properties of the exchange mean past sessions can be decrypted even if the password is eventually compromised. What cryptographers call forward secrecy. So, in those first fractions of a second, your phone and the router have done something quite sophisticated. They have authenticated each other, established trust, and agreed on how to speak privately without ever exposing the secret that made it possible. The invisible conversation is now encrypted, and it's just getting started. At this point, your phone is connected to the network. It can send and receive data across the local Wi-Fi. But there's a problem. It doesn't have an address. Think about that for a moment. On any network for communication, doing the work, every device needs a unique identifier, a numerical label that other devices can use to find it, send it data, receive data, and turn in return. Without that, your phone is like someone who's entered a building which has no office number, no mailbox, no place to receive anything. So it asks the protocol responsible for this is called the DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. And the way it works is almost like a scene from a play. Your phone enters the network and broadcasts a message to everyone. Hello, is anyone there? I need an address. Can someone help me? This is called the DHCP Discover. It goes out to the entire local network because your phone doesn't yet know who to ask specifically. It's shouting into the room. The DHCP server, which is almost always built into your router, hears this and it responds, I'm here and I have an address for you can use. Here, I'm offering you this one. That's the DHCP offer. The router proposes a specific IP address along with additional configuration information your phone is going to need. Your phone receives the offer, and rather than just accepting silently, it sends another broadcast. This time to tell everyone on the network, I'm going with this address from this server. The DHCP request. It's a polite declaration. If there are multiple DHCP servers on the network, uniquely in the home, but possible in large environments, this step lets the others know their offer weren't selected. Finally, the router confirms that the address is yours. Here are all the details. DHCP acknowledge. Discover, offer, request, acknowledge. Phone messages, a conversation that takes milliseconds. And now your phone has an identity on the network, an IP address it can use to send and receive data, temporarily, assigned and valid for a set period of time called the lease. Your phone now knows who it is. But there's more in that final message than just an address, much more. And that DHCP acknowledges in that single message of confirmation, the router hands your phone a small configuration package, a briefing, in a sense, for how to navigate the world. It isn't just joined. It contains several things. First, your IP address itself, a number like 192.168.1.47. This is your identity within the local network. The address other devices on the same network can use to reach you is private. The outside world doesn't see it directly. Second, a subnet mask. This sounds technical, and it is. But the concept is straightforward. The subnet mask tells your phone which addresses are considered local on the same network and which are considered remote, out of the internet somewhere. It's the difference between knowing someone lives on your street versus knowing they live in another city. Different rules apply. Third, the default gateway. This is the IP address of the router itself, the device that sits at the boundary between your local network and the broader internet. When your phone wants to talk to something outside the local network, it sends the data here first. The router knows what to do with it from there. And fourth, and this is where things get generally interesting, the addresses of DNS servers. We'll come back to DNS in detail shortly, but for now, understand what it represents. The service that translates the human readable names we use, google.com, youtube.com, and any address you type, into the numerical IP addresses that computers actually use to route data. Without DNS addresses, your phone would have no way to look up where anything is on the internet. With them, it has a map. In under a second, your phone has gone from connected but lost to configured, addressed and ready. It knows who it is. It knows where the edge of the local area network is. It knows how to reach out beyond it. The gateway is open. Here's where it gets interesting. Most people think of connecting to Wi-Fi as a precondition, something that happens before they use the internet. You connect first, then you do things. But that's not how the phone your phone sees it. The moment the data connection is established, sometimes even before you've touched a single app, your phone has already begun doing things. A lot of things. Your email client suddenly contacts its service and begins pulling down any message that arrived while you were disconnected. Your messaging apps, WhatsApp, iMessage, Signal, whatever you use, reconnect to their delivery infrastructure and begin receiving any notification that were queued while you were offline. Your operating system checks in with its update service, not necessarily to download anything, just to compare notes. Is there anything new? Are my current versions still current? Cloud storage services, if you use them, begin the process of syncing. Photos you took offline get queued for upload. Files changed elsewhere get flagged for download. Calendar apps, re-synchronize passwords, managers check for changes, health and fitness, data syncs to wherever it lives in the cloud. And underneath all of that, invisible to any single app, the operating system itself is conducting its own conversations, analytics data, crash reports, telemetry. The device quietly reports on how it's been performing, what errors occurred, what was used, when. These are all small messages. Most of them are tiny, but there are many of them, and they all begin in that first window of connectivity, that moment just after authentication, just after DHCP, while you're still looking at the Wi-Fi settings page thinking the connection just finished. Before you even touch the internet, your phone already did. This isn't hidden in a sinister sense. These are systems designed for convenience, reliability, and seamless experience. The reason your messages are there when you open your app, the reason your photos are backed up without you managing it, all of that happens in this background layer that runs beneath every connection. But it's worth knowing it exists. It's worth understanding that the connected phone is an active phone, always, even when the screen is dark and your hands are in your pockets. Let's talk about DNS, because DNS might be the single most important piece of infrastructure on the internet that almost no one knows about, and it's happening invisibly every time you visit anything. Here's a problem DNS was created to solve. Computers communicate using numbers, IP addresses. If you wanted to visit a website in the early days of the internet, you'd need to know its numerical address. Something like 142.250.80.46. Memorize that. Now memorize one for every website you use, and update your memory every time those addresses change. Obviously, that doesn't scale. So engineers created a system, a phone book, for the internet. You provide the human name, a domain like youtube.com, and the system translates it into the numerical address the network actually needs. That system is the domain name system, DNS. When you type an address into a browser, before any actual content loads, before a single byte of the web page travels toward you, the device sends a key to a DNS server. What's the IP address for this name? If the device has looked up that name recently, the answer is probably cached, stored locally, so the lookup happens instantly without contacting anyone. If not, the key goes outward to the DNS server, your router provided during DHCP, which may know the answer directly, or may contact another server, which may contact another. We will continue with this in part 2. See you later.